Hi, I'm Wayne Jones, I think, and Craig's over there behind the camera. I'm going to take you through this beautiful cabinet range that I've designed that's fastly gaining a huge reputation. So I'm really pleased to be able to supply all us bass players this gear. What do you want as a bass player? You want enough volume in your sound when you're on stage or in a studio. You want clarity, and you want every frequency from top to bottom to be clear and present, without mud, without boom, without honky mids, and you want it to be as portable as you can get it. So I've given it to you. There's two parts to this scenario. There's a 210 cabinet that's powered with 1,000 watts, and there's a valve preamp. Now the 210 cabinet has got a Danish power amp built into the back of it. It's 1,000 watts bridged into 8 ohms, so the cabinet is 8 ohms. The frequency range of it is from 40 hertz to 20k, which gives you this. Crystal clear all the way up. No boom, just tight. Whatever you do comes out effortlessly with no mud in between, and the attack of every note is just there where you want it. How does it get there? Well, Lawrence Audio here in Melbourne and myself have worked on these speakers for a long time. We've got them right, so we're not about to fix anything that's not broke. They're Kevlar impregnated in the cones. They're eucalyptus pulp. There's a huge voice coil on them. It's 70 mil, which acts like a 15-inch speaker. They move plus or minus 5 millimeter. So it has the movement of a 15 and the attack that we love out of a 10-inch speaker, which is just smack. No one can do it. We're the only ones in the world that can do this, and I can truthfully say that. That's why Bass Player magazine in July have just acclaimed us as the best they've ever heard, the best powered cabinets they've ever heard. And I got the editor's award for them. So I'm a happy boy, and new bass players are about to be happy too. It's a growing list. The list includes Andre Berry from David Sanborn's band, and Nate Phillips from Richard Elliott and Rick Braun, Joe Jackson's bass player, Graham Maybe, Zay Williams, Arrested Development. Australians, who have we got? Craig Newman is out there at the moment with John Farnham having a ball. He's using this setup here, and he also uses the smaller ones, which I'll go into for local gigs and double bass. And Chris Becker's tried them and loves them. So Harry Bruce in Sydney, he's using them. It's in early stages. It's only 6 months since we've been out, and they're fastly getting known and used. So the cabinet, it's a 1,000 watt powered 210 cabinet, lightweight, beautiful crystal clear sound from 40 hertz to 20k. 40 hertz is your E string. They'll go to 28, which 30 hertz is your B string. I've got a 30 hertz high pass filter in there, in the box, to stop it from going below 30 hertz. Why? A keyboard player once used them and thought, beautiful, I've got this really tight bottom end, and he was playing all these beautiful synth bass things, and I kept reconing his speakers. And it dawned on me he never had, on a power amp in those days, these were my passive cabinets in 2001, he never had the high pass filter engaged, which is 35 hertz. So consequently, these were reproducing all those below 30 hertz sounds, and he was blowing them up. So now it's got a 30 hertz high pass filter in there. So they make them even more bulletproof. A Boeing engineer in America asked me whether he could try and fry these speakers years ago, and he took them to their limits, and he emailed me back and could not believe how bulletproof they are. So the sound has to come from the drivers itself first before you start playing around with boxes. That driver by itself, hold it in your hand, will give you 40 hertz up to 4.5K. And that's incredible, even. So it crosses over at 3.5 kilohertz, and then the tweeter is the JBL tweeter. There's nothing fancy about that. It just suits exactly perfect match to what we're doing. So that goes up to 20 kilohertz. So you have a studio sound on stage with the air movement that you want behind you, with no mud, no boom. It cleans up the whole band stage sound. The drummers turn around and go, wow, I love it. Every person in the band can't believe that you've just cleaned up their stage sound. David Sanborn turned around and said, every bass player that I use has got to have one of these in passing. Simply, it made his stage sound clean. He could hear his sax better. So that's the magic in these. Okay, so what else do you want? You want them to look good? They look amazing. I've been into every single detail. The carpet is the most highly rated ultraviolet proof carpet you can get. It's thicker than other carpets. The hardware is not uncommon. It's just pen hardware, corners and road case handles on the back, which I'll go into and show you in a second. And the casters on the back are over-spec'd, so they take much more weight. There's a heat sink at the back of the power amp that they operate really cool. The speaker air movement, they're not even blinking an eye. That cools the power amp too. Creating your sound as a bass player. You have your favourite bass, you love the tone, and that's what you want to reproduce. Amplifiers will give you a false colour. They will never ever reproduce the true sound of your bass unless you have something like this or you're in a recording studio. You'll get the sound of an amp or its speaker. And that's why the front of house engineer will say to you on stage, can I have pre-EQ? And you go, well, why can't I give you post EQ and you get my sound? Well, he doesn't get your sound. He gets the true representation of your bass and what you're putting into it with pre-EQ. If you go post, he's not getting the tone you're hearing, he's getting the tone you're selecting on your amp, which is not coming out of your speakers. So you want an amp that's going to reproduce your bass accurately and the speaker system. So as a bass player, I thought, okay, I've got the speaker. I can plug directly into that powered cabinet with my bass or a DI and get exactly the same sound as my bass. But you need a preamp in between it so you can control levels, etc. Otherwise you'd be driving the front of house guy insane with the volume on your bass by itself. So I'm used to playing studio stuff. I used Avalon 737s, I think they are, preamps, and Avalon U5 DIs. I used to use U5 DIs all the time to record my last albums. So I was looking for a pristine sound in that quality in a preamp. And so that's why I've designed this WJBP. It had to reproduce that quality, but I also needed all the bells and whistles that we want. What do you want out of an amp? Okay, I'd like to have a tuner built in, so I'll mute this. There's my tuner. What else do you want? I want an input gain so I can use active and passive basses or change that. So I have an input gain with a pad on it that you can use for active basses. Pretty standard. I'd like some compression. Well, optical compression, the same as the Avalon. This is hardly on. Or I can suck the hell out of it. Optical sensors, it's more even. I don't use it, but it's there. Now, what else do you want on a preamp? A DI out? Yep. How about a level on the DI so you can control the level that the front of house or studio engineer gets? Good, so I've done that. I'd like to be able to plug my iPhone or iPad into it and play along with tunes live and to practice. So there is an auxiliary stereo input in there, both 1/4 inch and mini jack. I'd like to be able to plug my effects in there. Oh, okay. I have an effects loop going. So let me turn some effects up so you can hear it. So it's in the effects loop. I'll just turn that off again. That's mono or stereo. What else do you want? Okay, I've just about got it all in there. I'd like to blend how much effects if I can't get it from the unit. So there's a blend switch on the knob on the back, wet or dry. Just minimal adjustment is all that's required. You should get the most from your effects unit itself. All right, now the most important part, your sound. That's the EQ section. All right, I've got a graphite bass here, which is like a keyboard. Every note, every note is even all the way up. So I want to be able to go and have an even sound all the way. Now, you like to create a tone around that starting point. So what I've done, there's a 5-band EQ here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bass, low mid. Bass is your E string. Low mid, I've set off the, well, I'll go into that in a sec. Low mid, mid, high mid, and treble. Okay, ever noticed on an amp you can turn the bass up and then it affects the low mid and you can't get rid of the sound in between the bass and the low mid, it gets muddy. You turn the low mid up and it affects something else. Well, that's because these frequencies and cue points are not set properly. So you can tailor your sound. That's flat, and that's how it should be. Dead flat. Now if I want to add a bit, it doesn't need much more. The rest should come from your bass. I can just go to my bass and change anything now on EQ. How about a different bass? Okay, I'll plug in a Fodera in a minute, which is a beautiful different bass. And then there's the F bass Craig has got here too, which he can play. Okay, I'm going to actually get Craig to play and I can just talk, which is good. Much easier. This is his F bass through one cabinet and we're hardly on volume wise. So you can just play away and change tones and talk about what you're doing.
So this is both pickups up full, 3-band EQ halfway, tone control halfway, so pretty flat relatively speaking. Bit more of a slap tone, so boost the lows, boost the high, cut the mids a little bit. Bit more of a scooped sound, something a bit more mid-rangey, so back pickup, boost the mids, boost the lows a little bit.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's all there.
Okay. Craig's now going to play the Fodera bass, which is the Monarch 5-string that they've so happily given me to display here and as a demo model for them. It's a bird's eye maple neck on it, which is stunning. Fretboard, sorry. There's a maple neck. It's a dovetail joint, so it's not a neck through. It's Seymour Duncan humbuckers. A Mike Pope 3-way preamp, which is can go from passive to active, a split coil, and a mid on and off switch. You can adjust the string spacing, and have a look at the low B. It's there. It's an extended length on the B string, which is their way of getting a better tone on the B. Confusing at first with your tuning, but you get used to it. So let's have a listen to it through the cabinets. Beautiful. How about a bit of slap on it? You can change the tone a little that you want. How about the back pickup type one? If you That's nice, especially for you're all the way back there, aren't you?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
If you don't come so far back, you get a bit more bottom end on it. But you want that growl there all the way back so you can manipulate it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. How about that status of mine? You handle a 6?
I'll give it a go.
I think you're right. Okay. Now Craig's going to play my own bass. It's funny watching your own bass being played by somebody else.
I'll be gentle.
It should be good. It's got a name. It's Basie, or the Count.
Right.
We call it the Count. It's Count Basie if it's good. If it's bad, there you go.
I get it.
All right. It's been a beautiful bass. I've done a lot of work with that since about 1996. It's a Status 6-string Empathy. It's in virtually both pickups centered in the middle at the moment with a little bit of bass and treble boost. So have fun with it. Beautiful. You found your way around that 6 okay.
Right.
Fine. Yeah. It's nice to hear it just standing here.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's 3 different basses through the 210. That's only one 210. That's nice. You can play in the background while I talk. It's just stunning. You don't want any more than that to reproduce your sound as a bass player. Except. And I'll go into the smaller cabinets now for you. Okay, I'd like to show you the other side of these cabinet creations. Okay, so you've got a 210, you've got a 410. 210 does most gigs you'll come across with a preamp for 1,000 watts. A 410 will give you 2,000 watts. That's concerts, outdoor, big clubs. How about smaller clubs and you don't want to carry much around, you want to throw something in your boot? Voila, the babies. Big babies, big sounding babies. They're a 1,000 watt stereo system, so it's the same power amp. But instead of bridging the power amp, I use both sides of the power amp. It's 500 watts into 4 ohms each side. So these cabinets are 4 ohm cabinets. Portable, they're so light you can pick one up with one hand easily, put them in your boot. Power amp's in one of them, and that feeds one speaker, and the other side of the power amp is linked via a speak on out and comes across into a passive cabinet. Okay. So it's full stereo. There's 2 outs of the preamp here, and that goes into left and right channels. Yep. So you can run stereo effects, you can use these as PAs, they're excellent keyboard amps. They're stunning for home theatre. They're crystal clear. We put a Nord through them in San Francisco with Michael Franti's bass player, Carl. And it was one of the best keyboard sounds I've ever heard. So they're multifunctional. If you like a clean guitar sound and you use Axe Effects or something, then they're going to sound amazing in stereo. So that's the idea of them. Same preamp, we're flat. It's got the mid-range and high controls on each box as well, same as the other. There's no need for any cast wheels or handles on them. There's just smaller handles here. How about some effects? We haven't demonstrated them. I've got a Strymon El Capistan delay reverb pedal plugged into the effects loop of this. So I'm going to have a bit of fun with the knobs while Craig plays here. And let's turn it on. And I can tap tempo that. So I'm going to drag it over here a bit. Okay. There it is. Yeah, it's just straight out of the effects loop out of the back. That's mono. Simply I haven't plugged another lead in to make it stereo.
So that could be a stereo delay through those two cabinets. Cool.
Yeah. If I plugged another lead into the other side, it can be mono or stereo out of here. So there you go. Versatility for your needs as a bass player with just the ultimate in sound and what you need. You know where to find me on the site. You can get me. Feel free anytime. You can ring, call me, ask me any questions when I'm in town. Okay, so at the moment I'm enjoying the ride. The endorsees in America are growing hugely. I've got them on tour. They're in backline companies in the States. I've got inquiries from UK and Canada starting to come in. So it's an interesting ride as a fellow bass player doing this and see the smile on my face. Cheers from me and Craig.
Thanks, guys.